So it finally happened. Detective Conan has finally reached 1000 episodes as of me writing this. By the way, what episode am I on? Looks like I still have some ways to go. Anyway, Detective Conan is one of my favorite shows, and it probably started my love for police procedurals and detective shows back when I watched it as a little kid. Fun fact, I first watched it in German dub, since my grandparents got a satellite dish and it picked up a bunch of German channels that aired a bunch of old classics like Dragon Ball Z, One Piece and Naruto, but the one I looked forward the most was the one with all the bloody murders in it. I just find it amazing how the Japanese can make a kids show about a bunch of gruesome murders and no one bats an eye. But anyway, looks like I'm not the only one that likes the show, a bunch of other people do as well, at least the Japanese do, and the numbers can speak for themselves. I mean, published since January 1994, ranks among the top 10 best-selling manga of all time, with over 150 million copies sold. The anime adaptation is ongoing since 1996, with no notable breaks, and is frequently listed among the best anime series of all time, and in the most recent TV Asahi poll for the top 100 manga, where 150,000 people voted, it ranked 4th. So yeah, it's quite popular. But what makes it so popular? I don't know. Like with every form of entertainment, it's strictly subjective. So what I'm about to say is just my opinion. You may like the show for completely different reasons, or you may dislike it for the same reasons I like it, and if so, the comment section is here to talk about it, if you want to. And with that being said, allow me to elaborate why exactly I love Detective Conan so much. First, let me address the stars of the show, the cases. There are no two cases that are the same. Okay, there are only two cases, murder and kidnapping, with the occasional treasure hunt thrown in, but you know what I mean. It's amazing how in a detective show so long, and with so many cases handled, every single one of them felt distinct and unique. And I like how each case is structured as to allow a form of audience participation during the investigation. Let me explain. Most of the episodes start by introducing the characters that would play a part in the upcoming case. They are usually the victim and some people the victim interacts with on a regular basis that would become suspects. They would usually benefit in some way from the victim's death, or they have a grudge against the victim, so they would all have motive for murder. Then, after the crime is committed, usually murder, the police would come and take the statements from everyone at the scene, establishing alibis for the suspects and gather evidence that can help identify the culprit. And the audience can follow the ongoing investigation and piece together the information they received by doing so and try deducing the culprit at the method they used to commit the crime. And it's a pretty rewarding feeling when you manage to deduce the solution to a complicated case by simply following along what was going on during the investigation. The only cases us Western audiences may have problems solving are the ones where important clues have to do with the Japanese language and writing systems. Next, I'd like to talk about the characters, because you can have a detective show with all the cases in the world, but if the characters you are following are boring, it starts to lose its appeal real quick. Fortunately, I quite like the characters in Detective Conan. Conan himself is an interesting protagonist, with a somewhat unique situation thrown upon him. Well, unique until like 100 episodes in. Ran is the one that keeps things grounded when Conan and her father get a bit out of line and is the support pillar of their family, always being there to help in whatever way she can. Kogoro is a goofball that enjoys the fame he gained because of Conan a bit too much, even though he himself is a second-rate detective at best, but even he has shown he is capable of some amazing feats of deduction when it comes to his family and friends, but he's mostly there to goof off and be a vehicle for Conan to solve cases through. Then there's the supporting cast that is quite colorful and fun. You have Sonoko, Ron's best friend that's a bit annoying but always entertaining to watch, like Gina from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The police officers that handle the crime scenes are all full of personality, especially Inspector Megure and Detectives Takagi and Sato, who have a great dynamic with one another. Then there's Heiji, Conan's rival from Osaka and his best friend, and Kazuha, Heiji's childhood friend and love interest, the Detective Boys, Conan's gang of crime-solving elementary schoolers, the FBI agents, and Kaito Kid, that's always a joy to watch. and God knows how many more characters I have yet to see, that all add something to the show and end up being relevant to the overarching plot. And speaking of the overarching plot, it's some of the most anime things I've seen. I mean, a high school detective gets ambushed while following some suspects and is given some strange poison that was supposed to kill him without leaving a trace, but instead reverts his body to that of an elementary school kid. So he stays with his childhood friend and her detective father, solving cases by pretending to be said detective father to avoid suspicion, and all the while searching for the man who did this to him and a way to get his body back to normal. Only in anime can something like that happen. But at least it gave us one of the best and scariest evil organization antagonists since the Ginyu Force.
Sure is Zarbon in here.
The organization simply referred to as Men in Black, and not the Tommy Lee Jones one, although he is no stranger to appearing in Japanese media. God, I love those commercials. Anyway, the organization is full of individuals with exceptional talents that can match even Conan, but over time, Conan finds allies that are capable of going against the organization, and their clashes are always intense and nail-biting experiences. That is, when they happen every once in a blue moon in between the more episodic cases and adventures. Did I already mention how long the show is? And how I must be a masochist for starting to watch it from scratch with nearly 1000 episodes to it? But I don't regret a thing, since the show is always consistently entertaining with all its brain-puzzling cases, high-stakes action, nail-biting tension, and a couple of compelling romances. But if you're someone that wants to check the show out, you better have a lot of patience and free time, otherwise you're not catching up anytime soon. But the real appeal of Detective Conan is actually pretty simple. It creates a mystery at the start of every episode. A mystery we want to see uncovered because we, as human beings, are naturally curious creatures. If we are confronted by something we don't fully understand, we try our hardest to uncover the truth behind it. And when we do find it, it's one of the most exhilarating feelings in the world. And Detective Conan has perfected the art of creating mysteries we cannot help but want to solve, and it trusts us to be able to solve them. And like the main man Conan Edogawa says, there's always only one truth. Right, that's it from me about Detective Conan for now. Until next time, bye!